welcome to episode 5 of season 2, Straighten Your Crown. Today we're joined by our milkmaid, Brittany, and Kristy in her beautiful black dress.
We are very opposite today.
We are, aren't we?
All right, so today we're talking about something that I know literally nothing about, so I'm so glad that I'm hosting this one and not actually having to talk.
And we don't know what the question is yet, so we may or may not.
We might agree with you.
This is going to be the shortest episode ever. No, today we're talking about business structure and what structure, like how to structure a business. What are your options when you're like thinking about starting a business, starting a company, all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, we want to kind of, generally speaking, because we don't want to.
It would take 3 hours to be like, all right, let's do a company plan.
Yeah, so generally speaking, things that we need to think about when we're actually starting a business.
I think that was like us too, like we decided to do it right straight away. Because a lot of people, like obviously you know finances and stuff is not always in business with a lawyer, it made it easy for us. But it's normally what people think second, but it would be really handy to think first.
Yeah. So I think that's probably a good starting point. So how you structure your business in the first place is really important, because once you've structured it a certain way, it can either be really difficult to undo that, or there's payment of taxes and stamp duties and things that could hurt you. So I think, probably key is speak to a lawyer or an accountant or both, ideally, and get some legal and financial information around the best way for you to structure your business. So it could be the case that you start out, for instance, as a sole trader. Could be the case that you start out as a company. There are things called trusts that you may or may not have heard of, and things like the different structures that you have. So whether you've got a company or a trust, you know, they have versus a sole trader, they have different tax consequences, but they also have different levels of, I'll call it like levels of protection is probably a good way to say it and look at it. So definitely get some advice around how to set that up in the first place. Sorry, host, you asked the question.
Like, so you said that it was really important to set it up the right way the first time. What are kind of some of the pitfalls that people would run into if they didn't set it up correctly? Like if they just jumped in both feet, didn't get that advice from accountants or lawyers or whatever. What are some of the things that they might come across, and how soon in the business would those kind of pitfalls come up?
So this is definitely stuff that you need to think about, like literally straight up. And I can't answer the question to how soon it could happen, because literally the moment you start business and start trading, you know, something could fall down. You could be sued is a good example of something like that. So they're pretty significant things to watch out for. If you are, for instance, operating as a sole trader and you don't have any protection from a company or a trust or various other protections that you can put in place, and you do something wrong, or you're negligent, or all of anything, you just do something wrong in business and somebody brings a claim against you, if you're a sole trader, it can very well be the case that they're bringing that claim against you personally, which opens up your own assets, you know, if you've got a house or something like that. So again, when you set it up in the first place, get that legal and financial advice, because your advice might be that you do set up a company, which adds a level of protection, because a company is like a person, so it's its own entity. That's right. So if you had a company, that would be a level of protection, where if you did something wrong within the business, or the business did something wrong, the actual claim would come against the company, not against you personally. So that could happen at any point. You know, it might be one day in, it might be 10 years in, but you know, if you've set yourself up as a sole trader and you don't have those added levels of protection, it could be the case that you're going to lose your assets. That's like an excellent and simple example. But I'm not trying to scare anyone, but you do.
It's the reality of it though.
Reality.
And I think we always have that, you know, suggestion of like, make sure you're setting up correctly, make sure you're getting proper advice, make sure that you understand what liability is on you personally. That was one of the big things with me and Kristy is I asked so many questions, like when we sent through the original contract, I said to my dad, like, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? I wanted to understand what risk I was taking when doing this, because it's important to know that, because you could lose everything if one thing goes wrong that you're not planning for, and you can't plan for mistakes or issues, can you? Like if our like friggin' rack fell over tomorrow and crushed someone, are our insurance going to make sure that everything's okay? Like, are we covered? Is the business covered? Like, you have to ask those kind of questions, because it does get a little risky if you're not looked after. So making sure that you're getting, even the right insurances, making sure you're talking to lawyers and accountants, and making sure that you're getting all the right information before you jump in.
And just be aware of that as well. So even if you have a company, like our structure that we have together for Empress Athleticus is a series of companies and a series of trusts that all sort of join together for protection.
It's beautiful.
It is a beautiful structure. But you also need to be aware, that us as directors, we have responsibilities. Directors have huge responsibilities. So, you've got to make sure that if you are in a company relationship and you do have directors, that, you're all fulfilling your duties, doing the right thing all of the time. Because if you're not, there's consequences again. And if you're not doing the right thing, again, you can be attacked personally, if that makes sense. So, yeah, again, legal financial advice, set the thing up properly in the first place, because there are so many things that can go wrong, and it's difficult to undo poor structures in the first place. Yeah,
and it's very time consuming as well.
Yeah.
Like I know of a
and
lot
costly.
Very fucking. Oh, sorry. Even too, like I know a few businesses, started as a small little business, like a little hobby business, and then they took that step to get bigger, but they didn't make those changes before they took that next step. Like obviously having hobby businesses a little different, because there is a little bit of a different layer and stuff like that. But we're talking if you're taking your hobby business to an actual, you want to get an employee, or you're wanting to
scale it in some
you're wanting
way.
to scale it, or you're wanting to, I don't know, whatever it is, you are going to have to think of all those things before you just jump in and hire someone, because it gets very, very risky if you're just like, I'll get an employee, blah, 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 and then you have to then backpedal and spend a lot of money to set that correctly if you get to a certain level, which is just like, it's not worth it. So we're telling you, our best advice is literally to try to seek as much advice as possible before you take your hobby business into an actual thing.
I think another thing with structures as well, if it's set up properly in the first place, and depending what you're starting the business for, so with Empress Athleticus, we would love to, keep that, build it and grow it forever, because it's really important to us. There are other people out there that start businesses for the purpose of sale in due course. So if it is the case that you want to scale and then sale a business, again, the structure is really, really important, because that's something that's actually sold with the business, and again, making sure things are done soundly in the first place.
And you would lose so much money if you sold something. Like you wouldn't even be actually able to sell it if it was all set up all dodgy and nothing was, seamless, and there wasn't proper insurance or work health and safety procedures and blah, 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 blah. Like all the things that make an actual core of a business, you have to make sure that you're doing things correctly. And it's okay if you don't understand it. You're not meant to. Like it's all good. Like I said, not everybody has a business partner as a lawyer, but seeking information is very, very important. And understanding, like I said, your risks that you're taking as a director of your business.
So as a sole trader, or even in a partnership, or whatever the case is.
Understand what your responsibilities are, and understand what your due diligence are with your business. I said that word very wrong.
Due diligence.
Thank you so much.
That's what we're here for.
Without prejudice. That's another one I can't love that. But yeah, just understand and try to seek as much information as possible. That is our number one advice for it.
So then another thing, like kind of tying into all of that, would be creating your business plan before you then like getting that legal advice or that accounting advice and that sort of thing, because like I'm sure the first question that your lawyer's going to ask you is, well, what's your plan? Like what are you going to do? What's the future plan for this?
I think like a business plan is really important to have in any event, because it gives, particularly like in a partnership situation that we have, it gives some direction as to where the business is going to go. And I know that things can change, and when you're a small business, you're quite nimble, so you're able to change those things. But you still need to have some direction about what this is going to look like, because your lawyer or accountant will need to have some concept of what it is that they're going to advise you on. You know, if you're sort of, I don't know, if you're selling, candles or headbands or something like that, you might get very different legal advice or financial advice to the advice where you're saying, look, we're starting an apparel business, we want to have, 10 employees in the first 3 months or, whatever the case is. And, we're doing this to retain this business longer term. So, definitely have a business plan.
Really think about it too, for 100%, because even if you are like, you're just like making candles at home or whatever, do you want to just be making candles by yourself for the next, 3 years, or do you want to have an employee within the next 6 months? You know what I mean?
And what's that going to look like?
And what's it going to look like?
Yeah.
Is that going to affect anything? Like, you need to play dumb, like, with your accountant and lawyer. Like, seriously, because you want to get them to give you as much information as possible, and always have that, what if I then did this, or what if I then did this? Like, try to get as much information as humanly possible, and then that way too, when you then have your proper plan, like, okay, well, this is what I'm thinking, even if it's going to change, it's at least a plan that you can then kind of base everything off, and then make sure that you have all the steps kind of in their work cover, work health and safety, insurance, like, there is so many things that actually come under the umbrella of actually running a business, that you need to get that support and advice.
I think a lot of people too, when they start businesses and when you actually bring on an employee, people are not aware that you actually need to have work cover. So I've heard that many times where I just didn't know, but it's not okay. You can get huge fines and get yourself into a whole heap of trouble. If you don't follow those.
And that's the thing. Play dumb for your accountant and lawyer. Ask them, and do not play dumb with business, because that's not going to hold up. Yeah. You can't just be like, I didn't know. You have to know. Like, that's why you have to ask your accountant and your lawyer all those questions, because you're liable from day dot. Like, they're not going to be like,
they didn't know.
They didn't know, guys. It's the same thing too. Like, if you got pulled over for speeding, and then be like, this is a 60 zone, and you were doing 80, and be like, sorry, I didn't know. It doesn't matter. You're still going to get the fine. And even if you were just driving in a different state, and you didn't have your P plates displayed correctly or something. I'm just using that example because it happened to me. And you said, I didn't know. And they go, well, it doesn't matter. Here's a $300 fine. It doesn't matter. So you have to make sure that you're getting as much information as possible. It's so, so important, guys. So, so important.
Sorry that this one's really boring.
But it's not boring though.
Really
For some, there's obviously going to be people out there that are going to be like, oh my God, I didn't realize that I needed to get work cover before I hired my employee that's starting on Monday or something like that.
Or even little things with small business where it's like, I didn't realize because I was so small, or it's just a hobby business. I didn't know that I should still go and get some legal and financial advice, and that this would be able to help me. So
not boring. It's not boring, but it all just ties in together.
Well, it's just a bit more serious. I think that's the thing, because it is serious. That obviously having a business, it's super fun, but there are a lot of risks and responsibilities that come with having your own business that you need to be aware of.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that kind of ends our conversation for today. We'd like to thank the milkmaid for taking time out of the busy schedule milking cows.
Thanks.
All right. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.